Translate this, and my salary is yours. Millionaire laughed. The maid did, and his jaw dropped. As billionaire tech CEO Victor Reeves waved a document in Mandarin in front of his executive team, Lucia Vega halted in mid-polish, her secret fluency burning in her throat. Reeves pushed Lucia's cleaning cart aside with his Italian leather foot and declared, "Anyone who can translate this acquisition proposal gets my salary for a day. 20 cents and you $400. Executives exchanged knowing looks as laughter erupted in the conference room. Before continuing, I want to invite you to like the video and leave a comment from where you are watching this beautiful story. Lucia kept her gaze lowered, watching her cloth move in a circle against the mahogany table. With his Harvard-class ring clinking against his water glass, VP of Operations Derek Willis remarked that perhaps we should just use Google Translate. More dependable than any other discount service we might receive. The vibrating phone in Lucia's pocket served as a reminder of the eviction notice. The precise sum that stands between dignity and desperation is $27,000, which was due 72 hours prior to the court hearing that could result in her family losing their house. She curled her fingers around the pen of the jade translator in her pocket, a chance dangling before her, a history denied, a skill hidden, her father's last gift. Would she be saved, or would she only face further humiliation if she let people see who she really was? As she slipped out of the room, unseen again, the question lingered like a premonition. Not all the time had Lucia been invisible. She was the bright-eyed 8-year-old who astounded her teachers by switching between 3 languages with ease 15 years ago. Raphael, her Dominican father, and Min, her Chinese mother, had met in Boston during an exchange program for international students. Their shared love of languages and education had allowed their romance to blossom in spite of cultural disparities. Raphael would gently explain Lucia, words create bridges between worlds, while teaching her how to develop characters that moved across the page. By the age of 10, she was able to translate talks between her Dominican relatives and Chinese grandparents, causing all sides of her family to smile with pride. She had received the jade translator's pen as a 13th birthday present. Knowledge lights its smooth surface, which is cool and heavy in her hand and only broken by carved characters' spelling. She could smell the subtle sandalwood aroma of her father's study, where they had spent many hours studying manuscripts in several languages as she held it near. Her father had mentioned that this pen belonged to a distinguished scholar. Is now someone else's property. Raphael Vega was let go from Reeves Enterprises 3 months later as part of a strategic reorganization. He was let go with a severance package that hardly paid 2 months' rent after 15 years of building the company's relationships in the Asian market. Overnight, the health insurance vanished. The medical expenditures mounted more quickly than the rejection letters from his job applications after the chronic cough was diagnosed as stage 4 lung cancer. Lucia recalled the evening her father had come home pale following an interview at a rival company. He had said to men, "They can't hire me. For whatever reason, Reeves has banned me from the industry because of proprietary knowledge." Raphael passed away 6 months later, leaving behind a devastated family. $43,756 in medical debt, and a jade pen that Lucia now carried with her everywhere she went as a burden and a talisman. Without American credentials or contacts, Min's engineering degree from Beijing University was worthless, so she took on 3 cleaning jobs. When Min suffered her first stroke, Lucia's hope of receiving a language scholarship vanished, and the 17-year-old was forced to drop out of her senior year and start working right away. At the age of 23, Lucia's days now had a grueling cadence. After taking care of her partially disabled mother till dawn, cleaning the offices at Reeves Enterprises from 4 p.m. to midnight, getting 3 hours of sleep, and translating academic articles online from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. under the alias Linguistic Bridge, compared to her cleaning employment, which earned between $14 and $25 per hour. The anonymous translation work paid $22 per hour. However, clients were erratic, and disclosing her identity could result in the loss of her mother's much-needed healthcare coverage. 60 hours of work per week, monthly rent of $463 for her mother's prescription drugs, $275 for the payment plan on her father's medical debt, $119 for groceries, and $145 for utilities. Savings have no place in the math of survival. Lucia had been moving through Reeves Enterprises like a ghost for 5 years, emptying garbage cans as executives talked about acquisitions worth billions of dollars. She had developed the ability to blend in while keeping an ear out for everything, including personnel changes, product launches, and strategic acquisitions. Her proficiency in Mandarin, Spanish, and English allowed her to turn background noise that others might consider useless into insightful knowledge. She was aware that Victor Reeves had reduced employee retirement payments when he bought an Aspen vacation house for $14.2 million. She was aware that junior analyst Priya Sharma had actually created the Singapore expansion strategy, but Derek Willis had claimed credit for it. She was aware that structural wage disparities were concealed by the company's outward pledge to diversity. Executive leadership was 94% white, while 87% of maintenance staff were persons of color. Intelligence without opportunity, knowledge without strength, understanding what they said about Asian markets, Hispanic customers, and untapped multilingual demographics. Lucia cleaned their coffee rings. She was aware of the irony, but it didn't stop evictions or cover costs. The 72-hour countdown had now started. The plea for her mother's infirmity had been turned down once more. On Monday morning, the final eviction notice will be processed. They would become part of the invisible ranks of the displaced if they did not have $25,000 for back rent and court fees. Those who, without being accepted by the city, constructed, maintained, and cleaned it. At exactly 10:17 a.m. on Friday, the document showed up on Reeves' desk. She was polishing the neighboring glass trophy cabinet when Lucia saw, close enough to view, the logo of Huangtech Innovations, one of the biggest semiconductor manufacturers in China, and the Shanghai postmark. She also saw the brief flash of panic in Reeves's normally calm face. The executive floor was in disarray by midday. Notifications of urgent meetings ping across screens. The unpleasant news was revealed when the translation crew was rushed. The chief translator, Lin, was in Beijing visiting relatives, while his 2 colleagues were in Tokyo attending a seminar for the sector. Reeves rushed out of his office, waving the document as Lucia emptied wastebaskets slowly, weaving through the chaos like a shadow. Presently, everyone in the meeting room. She ought to have gone. On Fridays, her work officially ended at noon, but she stayed behind out of curiosity, or maybe fate, to continue cleaning previously spotless surfaces while the CEOs gathered. The manuscript was slammed upon the table by Reeves. For our new CPU, Huangtech is providing us with exclusive manufacturing rights. Our market share in Asia might quadruple as a result. That's great news, Willis said, his voice betraying his bewilderment. If we could read the damn thing, it would be, Reeves yelled. Our translation team is not available, and they sent it in Mandarin. They are threatening to take the transaction to Samsung unless they receive an answer within 72 hours. Lucia felt her heart race. She recognized a number of characters that were visible on the cover page. Technical phrases that she had learned from her father, and tolerance criteria for semiconductor manufacture. When Priya Sharma suggested, "Can't we use a service for something this confidential and technical?" Reeves sneered. Do you want every Silicon Valley tech company to know about our competitive advantage? Uncomfortably, the executives shuffled. On the credenza, Lucia's fabric shifted in quiet circles. "I'll make it worth someone's while," Reeves added, his tone becoming more theatrical as he became aware of her presence. "If you can accurately translate this 30-page proposal in 48 hours, I'll pay you $27,400 per day." After a moment of silence, Willis burst out laughing, and others hesitantly joined in. "Perhaps even the cleaning lady could give it a shot," Reeves continued, pointing to Lucia. "However, I doubt that Mandarin is taught in the housekeeping school." This time, the laughter was sharper. Lucia's fingers clenched around the cleaning cloth, but her gaze remained downcast. Willis said, "We'll split it up among the team. After the initial pass, use translation software and tidy it up." "All right," Reeves said, "but keep in mind that security procedures are in full force, and these documents must remain in this facility for the full 72 hours before Huang walks." Lucia saw two things as the executives scattered, taking copies of the document. When the characters explicitly stated an exclusive production contract, they were first mistranslating even the title page, muttering about partnership options. Second, her eviction timeframe coincided exactly with the 72-hour deadline. Reeves's daily wage would pay the past due rent and her mother's acute medical expenses. However, if she failed, disclosing her abilities might endanger her career, or worse, if she was successful and the executive's pride was in jeopardy. What if the predatory policies that had ruined her father's career were included in the document? Would her latent gift now be exploited by the same company that had destroyed her family? Would she ever be able to forgive herself for turning down this opportunity? Standing in the murky light of her apartment kitchenette at 1:43 a.m., Lucia made her choice. In the renovated living room, her mother slept fitfully, her face shadowed in blue by medical monitors. Lucia's translation notes were next to the eviction notice. The red-circled number 72 indicates the number of hours until the court hearing on Monday. She wouldn't tell anyone outright just now, since it would be too dangerous. However, she may try it out and see how useful her abilities would be. She returned to Reeves Enterprises on Saturday night, her cleaning uniform serving as the ideal cover for entrance after hours. The security guy nodded familiarly as she drove her cart past his post, leaving the executive floor empty. Lucia, working overtime on the weekend, playing the part they expected, she responded with an exaggerated accent. "Mi madre needs medicine." The conference room was a jumble of mistranslated business phrases and technical jargon, with executives' translation attempts strewn on the whiteboard. Their twisted interpretations made Lucia wince. She meticulously rewrote 3 crucial passages with her jade pen, accurately interpreting the intricate semiconductor jargon. "Night owl" was her simple signature. Although the adjustments were limited enough to appear like useful tips rather than a comprehensive solution, they were specific enough to show knowledge. A test balloon for measuring response. Her unnamed help had caused a stir by Sunday morning. Lucia arrived early with her cleaning cart and waited by the door of the conference room, listening in. "What on earth is a night owl?" Reeves insisted. Willis said, "Security says no one entered the building without permission." Someone on our squad, surely. Through the opening in the door, Lucia observed Willis's calculating look as he examined the whiteboard. Then, to her surprise, he turned to Reeves and erased her signature. Willis said calmly, "Actually, I did this part. I've started taking private Mandarin lessons." Reeves gave him a shoulder clap, but I didn't want to make a big thing out of it until I was more proficient. At last, some initiative in this area. You make a valid point, Willis. Organize the group's activities. Lucia's minor triumph turned to ashes. Because of her efforts, Willis was elevated to project lead. With only 48 hours left until eviction, she couldn't afford to be outraged by the injustice. Lucia laid out the photos on their kitchen table that evening after her mother had finally fallen asleep. As she worked through the technical parts, she came upon something that chilled her to the bone. Reeves might lay off 300 employees at the manufacturing plant in exchange for lower production costs, according to the contract's terms for workforce optimization criteria. The family of her mother's cousin, who immigrated last year and had at last found stability, would be among those workers. The jade pen suddenly felt heavy in Lucia's palm as she sat back, finished the translation in an anonymous manner to help other families suffer or to put herself in danger of losing all. Her supervisor texted her, and her phone buzzed. The executive wing now has new security cameras. Until further notice, all cleaning personnel are required to finish their responsibilities by 7 p.m. The window was shutting due to restrictions on her access after hours. Lucia had to take drastic steps. She translated rapidly on pieces of paper while hiding in restroom stalls during breaks during her Monday shift. She raced against Reeves's and her own deadlines, working through lunch in the supply closet. The eviction hearing is in just 58 hours. She finished translating about 40% of the material by Monday night. With each successful interpretation, she watched as Willis continued to take credit, placing more anonymous night owl notes in the conference room with care. With 47 hours until Juan Tech's deadline and 56 hours till eviction, the clock was ticking. Lucia's hands cramped from writing, and her eyes burned from sleep deprivation. Her mother's health worsened. Her blood pressure severely spiked due to the stress of maybe being homeless. That night, while holding Lucia's hand, her mother muttered, "Necesitamos un milagro," meaning, "we need a miracle." Her mother was unaware that Lucia was in possession of the miracle. If only she had the courage to grab it. A security breach has occurred. The remarks sliced like a razor through the executive meeting on Tuesday morning. As the security head presented camera footage of a mysterious figure in the conference room after hours, Lucia, who was setting up coffee service, maintained a neutral demeanor. He clarified, "The cameras captured someone, but the angle doesn't show a face. Industrial espionage, perhaps." Reeves commanded that everyone be looked into, particularly maintenance personnel who had access after hours. Lucia could feel Willis staring at her. Had he linked the enigmatic translations to her? By the afternoon, all cleaning staff were being interviewed by security officers. Lucia did her part flawlessly when it was her turn. The straightforward cleaner, who hardly spoke English, was perplexed by complex inquiries. She continued, "No understand problem," acknowledging the sheltering power of the stereotype, but hating herself for it. "I don't touch documents, I just clean." Willis remained after the interview, his Harvard ring tapping against the desk, but the security head appeared satisfied. When they were alone, he said, "Interesting. When I'm giving you cleaning directions, you seem to comprehend English well." Lucia shrugged, her eyes sad. "Simple instructions, complex questions." Willis bent in. "I believe you know a lot more than you admit." Lucia discovered her locker had been examined that night. When she understood what was missing, her talisman, her father's gift, and the pen used by the Jade translator, her stomach fell. When he cornered her in the empty break room, Willis spun the pen between his fingers, searching for this. What a strange thing for a cleaning lady. Don't these characters here represent knowledge? Willis withdrew it as Lucia grabbed for it. Unauthorized things that could be utilized for corporate espionage are a major risk for security. I've gone ahead and filed a report. By Wednesday morning, Lucia had received a formal warning from HR for her suspicious behavior and possession of prohibited materials. Lucia felt disoriented, and her confidence wavered without her jade pen, her bond with her father, or her self-assurance. There were 34 hours left in the eviction countdown. Their minimal savings were used to cover the ambulance copay when her mother was transported to the emergency department due to chest problems. The last eviction notice was posted by the apartment manager 48 hours prior to the locks being changed. While Willis was at a meeting, Lucia desperately exploited her lunch break to access his computer. She was frightened by what she learned. Important parts of the Huang proposal that would have harmed workers and possibly broken international trade regulations had been purposefully mistranslated by Willis. Reeves was on the verge of signing a contract that would lead to inquiries and steep penalties. Willis was waiting for her when she went back to cleaning. Without introducing himself, he said, "I know it's you, the enigmatic interpreter. I looked over the personnel records. Your mother is Min Vega, a Shanghai native who was once Min Liu. Until we, in my opinion, right-sized your father. He worked here." Lucia's mask came off. "My dad was a great addition to this business." She speaks, raising Willis's eyebrows at her flawless English. "How long would you maintain the act, I wondered. Return my pen to me." Willis retorted, "I spoke with immigration regarding your mother's visa status. Isn't it expired? Ever since your dad passed away. If authorities were informed, that would be unfortunate." Between them stood the menace, remain silent while hundreds of people lose their jobs and Reeves Enterprises commits business suicide. Or speak up and risk deportation. The Huang deadline is 24 hours away, and eviction is 30 hours away. Lucia has never been more determined or imprisoned. Exactly 24 hours before to the Huang tech deadline, the emergency board meeting started at 9 in the morning on Thursday. While Willis showed his finished translation to Reeves and the board members, Lucia went quietly around the perimeter of the meeting room, setting out pastries and pouring coffee. "The terms are really beneficial, as you can see," Willis explained, referring to his PowerPoint. "Huang provides exclusive manufacturing with less oversight of quality control at prices 15% lower than the market." At his mistranslation, Lucia winced. In reality, the document outlined strict quality control procedures with tolerance levels that were 15% greater than the industry standard. Willis went on to say that their only out-of-the-ordinary request is for quicker production scheduling through what amounts to roughly adjusted staffing levels. As she filled the water pitcher again, Lucia's hands shook. Willis was purposefully hiding how many layoffs the contract would necessitate. Willis acknowledged that there is a technical portion about the Liudong moxing procedure that is still uncertain, but he ruined the pronunciation so severely that Lucia couldn't help but wince. Reeves took note. "Is there a problem with the coffee lady?" Everyone looked at her. The moment dragged on, her future precariously poised. Lucia gently corrected Liudong moxing, the appropriate tones coming easily. "It doesn't mean what he said. It means fluid modeling system." The room went cold. Willis' expression grew gloomy. "I'm sorry. With 16 years of language studies surpassing 5 years of invisibility practice," Lucia lifted her shoulders. "A number of crucial passages have been mistranslated by you. The term Liudong moxing describes the semiconductor's thermal management system, which needs to be handled carefully during production. Technical standards are the issue, not staff reallocation." Willis started to say, "How dare you interrupt," when Reeves interrupted. "You can communicate in Mandarin," Reeves insisted, examining Lucia as though for the first time. With her heart racing, Lucia responded in Mandarin, Spanish, and English. "Although I can't speak Korean or Japanese well, I can read both languages." "She's lying," Willis said. "She merely works as a cleaner." Lucia went on, growing more assured with each sentence. My father was Rafael Vega. Prior to your major reorganization 5 years ago, he established your Asian market division. Since I was young, he has taught me technical terms and business Mandarin. Reeves' eyes sparked with recognition. I remember him, Vega. This is ridiculous, objected Willis. She most likely works for our rivals. Lucia challenged. Check my credentials, bringing out her phone to show her translation bridge. Com profile. Linguistic Bridge is the username I use for my work. With more than 400 academic and technical translations under my belt and a focus on business and engineering publications, I have a 4.98 rating. Reeves grabbed her phone and looked through the impressive list of clients and reviews. His prejudices are obviously at odds with his business instincts. Willis, nothing about quality control procedures is mentioned in your translation, Lucia added, turning to the board. Additionally, it conceals the fact that, as part of the agreement, Huang Tech is demanding that you fire 300 manufacturing workers, which would be against 3 different labor agreements you have signed. The board members looked from Lucia to Willis and whispered to each other. Willis sputtered, "This is ridiculous." Lucia recited, "You can't possibly," from memory in paragraph 4 of page 16. The characters make it quite plain that within 60 days of the contract's completion, Reeves Enterprises must reduce its employment by at least 300 positions. If you like, I can read the entire part aloud. For a long period, Reeves watched her, surprise giving way to calculation. "You say you can accurately translate this full document?" Lucia said that she had already translated roughly 60% of it. Mr. Willis has been claiming credit for the anonymous notes I left to assist. As heads turned toward Willis, his face became red. Reeves said, "You were the night owl." Lucia nodded, causing a slow, icy smile to appear on Reeves' lips as he saw an opening. "I stand by my offer," he stated. "If the entire paper is translated by tomorrow at 9 a.m., you will receive my $27,400 daily compensation." Surprised by her own audacity, Lucia retorted, "I want it in writing. I also want my pen returned." "Your writing instrument?" Reeves scowled. "The pen of my Jade translator. Yesterday, Mr. Willis seized it and reported it as suspicious. When Willis grudgingly took the pen out of his jacket pocket, everyone's eyes were on him. Along with a secrecy clause safeguarding my mother's immigration status, Lucia said, "I want a written contract that guarantees my continued employment regardless of the translation outcome." Her boldness caused the room to go silent. Reeves examined her with fresh curiosity, possibly even admiration. At last, he gave his aide instructions to draft the agreement. Additionally, get Mrs. Vega any resources she requires. Lucia felt the cool, solid, grounding weight of the jade pen as it was placed back in her hand, and her thoughts reset the countdown. Her mother was facing eviction in 36 hours, and she had 18 hours to interpret the remaining papers. For better or worse, she was seen for the first time in years, fueled by adrenaline and coffee from the vending machine. Lucia worked through the night in a tiny conference room that they had allocated her. The jade pen in her palm led her through intricate technical terms and nuanced cultural nuances that machine translation could never fully convey as her fingertips skimmed over the computer. Her eyes were burning at 3 a.m. On the page, the characters started swimming. By meticulously pointing out differences between what Huang Tech was really providing and what Willis had stated, she had finished almost 85% of the translation. The reality lay somewhere in the middle, not as idyllic as Willis depicted it, but also not as exploitative as she had first thought. Huang had made allowances for retraining programs, and the employment cutbacks were recommended rather than mandated. Her neighbor was sitting with her mother in the hospital when her phone buzzed with a text. In order to retain her for another day, The doctors require a $2,200 payment for ongoing care. 6 hours before her translation deadline and 30 hours before eviction, Lucia massaged her temples. She gave herself permission to feel hopeful. Their immediate problem would be resolved with Reeves' money. She might be able to pay the hospital, bargain with the landlord, and possibly even find better lodgings nearer to medical facilities. For a brief period, she put her head on her arms. She was startled awake by the sound of coffee cascading on her desk. Hot liquids crept into her laptop keyboard and spilled on her scrawled notes, causing Lucia to gasp. I was clumsy, and Willis was standing over her with an empty coffee cup and a phony look of worry on his face. "I just brought you a brand new cup." "You appeared very worn out." Lucia leapt to her feet, hurriedly using tissues to dab at the dripping liquid. The screen of her laptop flashed before going dark. Panic increasing, she started, "My translation." Willis responded. "Don't worry," with a smile that stopped short of his eyes. "Since I can't be too cautious with such delicate material, I took the opportunity of transferring your digital files to my secure disk for safety." Despite her pounding heart, Lucia's voice remained firm as she asked that they be returned. "I would, but sadly, it appears that there was some kind of corruption or technical issue," he shrugged. "These things do occur." The digital backup had vanished. Lucia would have to reconstruct important passages from memory and the still-readable, coffee-stained notes 4 hours prior to the deadline. He called over his shoulder as Willis strolled off. "You know, Reeves demands perfection. A single, mistranslated sentence might cost the business millions of dollars. If you have to explain, I'm sure he'll understand. Leave the task." Once more, Lucia's phone buzzed. This time, it was her landlord. Instead of arriving on Monday, "The eviction processor will arrive tomorrow morning. Acceleration owing to repeated late payments has been authorized by law." She felt the walls closing in as she gazed at the dead laptop and the torn documents. Mother in the hospital, 3 hours of missing work, and impending eviction. Every time, Willis had outwitted her. She briefly thought about giving up, leaving, and finding another cleaning position where she wouldn't be able to be touched by Reeves and Willis. The hospital's phone then rang. Her mother was in worse shape. Payment authorization was required for further treatment. With her palm tightening around the jade pen, Lucia worked feverishly, reciting translations from memory. 3 hours had gone by. She became exhausted as morning broke. Despite her best attempts, her eyes closed and her head drooped. When she woke up, Willis was grinning behind Reeves, who was standing over her. 13 minutes before the deadline. The wall clock read 8:47 a.m. "I anticipated this," Reeves declared, observing her unkempt appearance, the strewn papers, and the coffee stains. "Individuals ought to keep to their lanes. Executives carry out, while housekeepers clean. I'm wealthy because of this, and you're well in your element." He looked at his helper. "Notice of draft determination. It is obvious that Miss Vega broke company policy by gaining unauthorized access to private material." Lucia objected that our agreement was conditional on delivery, but Reeves interrupted her. "And you didn't deliver. I can clarify." Ignoring her, Reeves told Willis to call Translation Pro this afternoon, see if they can begin from scratch. "We will need to request an extension from Wong." Willis' victorious face was a testament to his character. Lucia watched helplessly as corporate ruthlessness destroyed her one chance to save her family. She remembered the sound of her father's voice. Words create connections between realms. However, what would happen if those bridges were torched on purpose? Had she put everything on the line and ended up worse off than before? Lucia's eyes landed on her bag, where the edge of a notebook was visible as Reeves turned to go. She had brought her father's study journal for reference, but it had been forgotten until now. With fresh insight piercing her fatigue, she called, "Wait!" Reeves stopped at the door, clearly irritated. "This is where we're done." Lucia pulled out the journal and added, "My father worked on this exact technology, the GX500 semiconductor series. Prior to Wong Tech acquiring the patent, he was a member of the original development team." As she leafed through the diary, she discovered her father's thorough notes on the specs, testing conditions, diagrams, and manufacturing process. Since the Wong documents presumed that Reeves Enterprises already understood the underlying technology, they did not even include this information. Since they are secret information, these notes include information regarding the thermal modeling system that isn't covered in the proposal. Lucia straightened up, her self-assurance returning. "No translation firm could match the technical accuracy with which I could finish this translation." After a strategic pause, Reeves remarked, "You have 10 minutes." Lucia's concentration returned to her work. Beside her, her father's journal opened. With confidence, the jade pen filled in the blanks, clarified any confusion, and noted technical details that the Wong document only vaguely mentioned. She entered the boardroom where executives had assembled for the Wong video conference at exactly 8:58 a.m. She put the finished translation in front of Reeves, who looked at it doubtfully. His aide informed that the video call was about to begin. Reeves paused, looking at Lucia, Willis, and the translation. "Maybe you ought to, Miss Vega." Lucia turned to go, saying, "I'll wait outside." A voice actually emerged from the video screen. "We would like Miss Vega to remain." When Lin Huang, the CEO of Huang Tech, and his executive team appeared on the big screen, everyone's eyes were drawn to it. There sat a familiar face next to him, her father's old co-worker, Mr. Zhang. "Miss Vega," Zhang continued in Mandarin, "meeting Raphael's daughter is an honor. He frequently mentioned your linguistic abilities." Lucia's astonishment gave way to comprehension as she answered in perfect Mandarin. "I am honored, Mr. Zhang. I had no idea that you knew that I worked here, until our intelligence team noticed that someone was accurately translating our purposefully complex proposal," Lin Huang said. We weren't. Few folks were able to effectively traverse such technical terminology." Reeves glanced back and forth between them. Not understanding the quick Mandarin conversation, Lucia changed to English. According to Mr. Wang, one test they used was technical complexity. They wanted to know if the knowledge my father helped develop was still present at Reeves Enterprises. "Do we pass this test as well?" Reeves inquired warily. "That depends," Lucia replied. Returning to Mandarin to speak directly to Huang, "There are unclear criteria for the workforce in the proposal which can be viewed as necessitating layoffs. Was this deliberate?" Huang's features broke into a faint smile. "Very observant. Since Mr. Vega left, we're worried about Reeves' labor practices. The wording was purposefully vague to see how the workers would understand it." Lucia looked over at Reeves. "Wong Tech is worried about the way your business handles employee management. That part was part of their character test." Willis moved forward. "This is absurd. She is compensating for this. Maybe Mr. Willis would want to clarify why he purposefully mistranslated important passages and undermined my work," Lucia said. She took out her phone and displayed surveillance footage that she had found while researching that night. "It is evident that Willis is removing files from her directory and spilling coffee on her PC." There was silence in the room. As he observed the unquestionable proof, Reeves' face stiffened. "You're fired, Mr. Willis," he replied calmly. "You will be led out by security." With a loud outcry, Huang yelled Mandarin once more as Willis was taken out. "As long as Miss Vega serves as our cultural liaison and supervises the execution, we will move forward with the contract." As Lucia translated the conversation in real time, the jade pen flowed boldly across her notes, its smooth surface catching the light, leaving behind clear blue symbols that had a subtle scent of possibility and sandalwood. It is now a tool of her power rather than a souvenir of her loss. As the power dynamics in the room changed visibly, Lucia stated, "They insist on working directly with me as a condition of the deal." Reeves observed her, realizing the power she now possessed. He had no other option, with millions at stake and the Huang deadline just minutes away. "All right," he admitted, "Mrs. Vega will be in charge of the implementation's cultural components." Huang expressed his satisfaction at discovering Rafael Vega's legacy at Reeves Enterprises as the video chat came to an end. When the executives started to scatter, Reeves went up to Lucia. "You seem to have been underestimated by me." "A lot of people do," she said plainly. "Our arrangement is still in effect." He made out a check for his daily pay of $27,400. "But you seem to have earned a lot more than that." While cameras captured the formal contract signing for the company's records, Huang sent one last email requesting a $50,000 signing bonus that would be used exclusively for Lucia Vega's cultural consulting services. Now that she had $77,400, enough to prevent the eviction, save her mother's medical care, and provide her breathing room for the first time in years, Lucia finally let out a breath. The jade pen was in her grasp now, a key to her future rather than a burden from the past. After 6 months, Lucia was sitting in her new position at Reeves Enterprises as Director of International Relations. The metropolis, where she had formerly felt invisible, was visible through the floor-to-ceiling windows. A framed picture of her mother, who is currently receiving specialized care in a facility near their new 2-bedroom apartment, was on her desk, which was made of polished walnut rather of the pressed composite of lower-tier staff. The morning light glinted on the smooth surface of the jade translator's pen, which was set on a little crystal stand. Now, when she held it, the aroma of sandalwood blended with the fresh orchids she kept next to her father's picture, creating 2 sensory links, one to her present and one to her past. Establishing a scholarship fund for employees, children named after her father, and conducting a thorough assessment of the company's layoff practices were her first formal acts as director. Rehiring community members with suitable benefits and training materials in their native tongue had been her second, in just 2 quarters. Reeves' Asian market share had grown by 32% thanks to the agreement she had secured with Huang Tech. She was now referred to as Ms. Vega by the board members who had previously glanced past her, with the same respect that they had earlier shown Reeves. Even Victor Reeves had grown to grudgingly appreciate her, not because of a moral enlightenment, but because of the straightforward math of profit. Her linguistic accuracy and cultural awareness had given the business access to previously unattainable opportunities. Miss Vega's distinct viewpoint has turned out to be very beneficial, as Reeves himself stated at the most recent shareholders' meeting. The corporate speak translation of "I was wrong about her" made Lucia smile. Her helper gave a soft knock. "The physical therapist for your mother called. Improvements are continuing to occur earlier than expected." Lucia replied, "Gracias," giving herself the little pleasure of speaking Spanish aloud in these hallways, where she had previously concealed her multilingual identity. There was a calendar reminder on her phone. In 15 minutes is the monthly board meeting. She had been unseen in that room 6 months prior, cleaning fingerprints off water glasses as CEOs made choices that would impact thousands of lives. She would introduce her plan for worldwide expansion today, which is expected to raise the company's valuation by 18% and generate 450 new employment. She was gathering her supplies when she noticed a newspaper clipping framed next to her father's picture. Reeves Enterprises stock soars on Asian partnership was the headline of the business section. The legacy of an immigrant father, new director credits. Analysts praised the company's surprising talent finding as a model for corporate diversity, and the piece emphasized her unusual ascent from maintenance personnel to senior leadership. Lucia's Hidden Talents Initiative, a company-wide program that encouraged staff members at all levels to highlight their education and talents, led to the promotion of 28 more maintenance and support staff members, which were not mentioned in the story. The former security guard, who holds a Nigerian engineering degree. 5 languages were spoken by the cafeteria employee. A gift for product design from the IT help desk technician. Meanwhile, Willis's attempted sabotage had gone public, making him a cautionary tale in business circles. Now, no big tech company would touch him. Ironically, he was instructing the identical group he had previously disregarded in business communication at a community college when Lucia last heard from him. Although Reeves was still fundamentally motivated by profit rather than morality, he had developed the ability to spot genius in any form. Instead of recognizing the structural obstacles that had kept Lucia hidden, he continued to call her ascent lightning in a bottle. However, his desire to change recruiting and promotion procedures had practical effects that went beyond rhetorical declarations. Each encounter served as a tiny bridge between worlds, as staff members called Lucia by name as she approached the boardroom, some in Mandarin, others in Spanish, or both. She carried her father's jade pen as a visible representation of her background and skill, not as a hidden talisman. She was still shocked to see the board members stand as she walked in as a symbol of respect. Lucia thought about her mother, who was now retaking online classes to update her engineering credentials, and the cleaning crew, who now looked her in the eye rather than avoiding her gaze, as she got ready to share her vision for the company's future. Being visible came with a cost, including the pressure, scrutiny, and awareness that she was representing more than just herself in these spaces. However, the price of invisibility was far higher. The bridges were not constructed, the voices were not heard, and the talent was wasted. "Good morning," she said in 3 languages as she observed the grateful nods from the board members. "We'll talk about how accepting other viewpoints changes not only our culture, but also our financial results today." Lucia selected her first slide, which showed the 24% rise in employee retention and the 32% gain in market share since she put her efforts into place. Numbers, particularly in boardrooms, were multilingual. She went on to say that talent doesn't always come in the usual forms. "But let me show you how businesses that understand it, no matter how it's wrapped, may gain a competitive edge." As she guided the company's leadership into a future her father could only imagine, the jade pen glided smoothly across her notes, one in which opportunities became highways and bridges connecting worlds. Has someone ever undervalued your abilities? Like Lucia, did you ever have a time when you truly demonstrated your worth? Leave a comment below with your tale. How you went from being invisible to being invaluable is something I'd like to know. Don't keep this tale of undiscovered talent and surprising success to yourself if you liked it. For more compelling stories that will motivate you to uncover your own latent skills, subscribe to Beat Stories. If you've ever felt undervalued, hit the like button. You can also turn on the notification bell to ensure that you don't miss our weekly uploads of inspirational tales. Keep in mind that, like Lucia, your next chapter could be determined by a single courageous choice.